but there's no A in my last name. That's kind of weird, huh? I'm just saying. I used to be able to make the joke that I balled likely better than the other T-Mac, but now he's on a decline, and most of you don't even know who Tracy McFarland is. And so this joke doesn't work for me anymore, which is kind of a problem. As a result, say awkward things like that. Are you all good? Okay, so ready to go? All right, today we're going to talk about space and international law. And I think that this is going to be an important aspect to the topic in a lot of different ways. So I'm going to structure my lecture to both give you background information, and then as I was researching to talk to you about this, I also tried to think of ways that it was applicable to debate, because y'all are at that point in the workshop when you're like, when do we just get to it? And so I've tried to offer some ap and some neg ideas based on the different international legal instruments that we'll talk about over the course of the morning. Okay? So that's sort of the plan. But before we do that, I think that sometimes some initial thoughts are in fact important. How many of you watch Colbert? Nice. We'll get along famously. Full screen.
Turns out to be. The seventh time. And my next guest has been on the show. One more, and you get the free football. What?
Oh, initial technical difficulties right at the start.
Welcome Neil deGrasse Tyson.
I'm very confused. Let's try this all again. Did you hear the Jeopardy theme music going?
Well, I basically started noticing my hair loss a couple years ago, so I started using Rogaine foam. Only Rogaine foam is shown to use Rogaine on 85% of guys. It just brought about a lot of
also
confidence.
Women.
Try new unscented Rogaine foam. Learn more at Rogaine.com.
You know, I am a huge fan of space exploration. How else would we have discovered the Tang mines on Mars? That's why I'm so angry that President Obama's 2011 budget scraps the Constellation program meant to return man to the moon by 2020. Well, we're not in space, so you can hear me scream, Obama! Why doesn't he want us to go back to the moon? Is it maybe because that's where he was really born? Yeah. That's just a little too easy. Nation, this is the end of manned American spaceflight. The very last shuttle launch is this September. What are they going to do with all those shuttles? Convert them into a chain of theme restaurants called Crepe Canaveral? Once upon a time, folks, astronauts were America's heroes. Now we eliminate them in the third round of Dancing with the Stars. Buzz Aldrin is the only one of those clowns who's even been to the stars. Listen to the dark future, folks, described by Texas Representative Pete Olson.
If we stay on the path the President's budget lays out, the United States faces the very real and very humiliating prospect of paying billions of dollars to Russia for years to hitch rides to the International Space Station that's been largely built by American taxpayer funds.
Oh, so we pony up the cash, then have to ride on the hump in the back seat while the Ruskies take the wheel? Yo, ooh, yes. You know they're not going to let us touch the radio? We'll have to listen to all that techno crap. It's good, it's good, it's good. Then they're gonna have the child safety locks on the back windows. They won't let us eat snacks or stop to use the bathroom. Should have gone before we left. Use catheter. And folks, the embarrassment is just going to get worse.
Now even the Iranians have entered the space race. Last month they sent a rat, 2 turtles, and a worm into space.
The Iranians have acquired space turtle technology. Just imagine how dangerous Iranian scientists will be once they graduate from elementary school. Worst of all, guess what NASA plans to spend its budget on now that Obama has killed the Constellation program? $4.9 billion to develop better robotics and $3 billion to develop unmanned ships. Robots in unmanned ships. Sending robots into space does not win glory for Americans. It wins glory for Roombas. Space belongs to America, especially the moon. We planted a flag on that thing. It's like licking every donut on the pastry tray. It's ours now. I mean, come on! What happened to the future we were promised? Planets full of big-breasted glamazons and golden corsets being rescued by muscular astro rangers who chart the galaxy in their shining silver space penises. As long as we're on the subject, NASA, where's my f***ing jetpack? Hold up! How hard can that be? Just rubber cement a fire extinguisher to a book bag. Done! We've been lied to. So how do we save NASA, folks? When we return, I will boldly go with a guest I've gone before.
All right, so you can see that Colbert. It's okay to applaud. If any of you are like truly fans of Colbert, you know that he actually has this dream to be an astronaut, and he did this series of episodes where he actually went to Cape Canaveral and did some training to be an astronaut and whatnot. So a lot of you raised your hands that you watched the Colbert Report, which I think is super awesome, in part because you have been tricked. All along, you've actually been learning stuff by watching Colbert. Do you know this? And how many of you watched Jon Stewart? Okay, same deal. So they know that what they say is under such intense scrutiny that they fact-check probably more than most of the regular mainstream media actually does. There was an article in the New York Times about 6 months ago maybe about Jon Stewart. They have 17 DVRs running all the time to pick up different news feeds and whatnot. So you should definitely continue to watch Jon Stewart and the Colbert Report. Totally unrelated to space and international law, but still. Alrighty then, so let's get to the space and international law portion of our time together. The first thing that I want to do is to talk about some basic terms in international law that may be familiar to you or may not be familiar to you. First off, what's a treaty? You can tell me what a treaty is. Yeah, I got you.
It's an agreement between two countries.
Yeah, potentially between two countries. If it's multilateral, y'all may remember from last year's topic that multilateral means multiple countries. And so a treaty is just an agreement that's negotiated, and almost all of the treaties that we're going to talk about today and international legal instruments that we're going to talk about today are multilateral, meaning that lots of different countries have come together to try to negotiate what those agreements are. Second important term to know in international law, a lot of times when the UN does something, they'll call it a convention. Now, this is not Con where people dress up as comic book heroes and come to the convention. Whole different meaning of the term. I only know Con. So the convention is just a way to describe a comprehensive international legal instrument. So there's a whole bunch of these that are not related to space. There's a convention on the elimination of the discrimination against women. There's a convention on the rights of the child. All sorts of things. So when the UN negotiates stuff, they often will call it a convention. Resolution, obviously you know what this is for debate, right? But in international terms, a resolution is typically an agreement about some statement or opinion that the world has come to. Some statement of an opinion that the world has come to. Which may sound a little bit weird, but this will be important later because sometimes, when the world figures out that they've negotiated a treaty and they missed something, then they'll like issue a resolution where they're like, oh crap, we forgot this one. And then they'll like say, by the way, this is what we all think we meant when we negotiated this treaty. Does that make sense to everybody? I should have said this at the outset. If you have questions, you are more than welcome to ask them in the midst of me talking. And if you think that I need to repeat something, just be like, hey, T-Mac, repeat it. Or you can say it nicely, no matter how. All right. Any questions so far? Yes.
Could you repeat the definition of convention so far?
Sure.
Not a legal instrument.
Sure. It's a legal instrument. That's usually the label given to UN agreements that the whole world comes to. So instead of calling them like treaties, sometimes they'll call them conventions. So some of those examples that I gave you deal with like the rights of the child. So it's like a big comprehensive document that the UN comes up with. Other questions? All right. Precedent. Anybody know what precedent is?
It's like an example that, like, the first time something is done, so, like, it sets the example for what's done later.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. It's like a template for future legal action. So precedent is used in lots of areas, but in international law, the term precedent means an example or a template to be followed later. An example or a template to be followed later. Now, the reason why I introduced this as a term is we also use precedents in the U.S. legal system. So, for example, when the Supreme Court makes a decision, the Supreme Court will say, hey, all you lower federal courts, this is what you should do if you're ever confronted with a similar case. Are you with me? Okay. And so, for example, the first time that like a space company decided that they wanted to launch a satellite for the purposes of like the internet, had that ever happened before? Do we know how to handle that in the legal system? No, we didn't. So what do you think we did? Yeah, we made the precedent. Yeah, we made the precedent. Do we just like, did the judges just go, hey, let us snatch this out of thin air? No, probably not. So what do you think they did? How do you think they thought about the company's right to launch a satellite and what sort of responsibilities that company had? When you don't know something, how do you try to figure something out? Yep, you Google it, that's true. But the company was trying to like get you on the Google by launching the satellite. What else would you do? Let's say that you had no internet. What? What if you had no Google? No. Oh my God. You would write a letter? Yeah? Okay. Who would you write the letter to? The president? All right. What else might you do? You don't know something in your life. What do you do? Or you're just like, oh, I don't know that.
Go to the library.
What? My noise of confusion. If you're not in my lab, you are unfamiliar with my noise of confusion. It sounds like this. I'll do it again. And so if you have a question and I do that to you, it means you got to like repeat it or a comment. I'll try again. All right. Less been traumatized by me already today. So what do you think? You don't know what you're doing. You've got write a letter, ask a question. All right. Who are you going to ask? You. Fair enough. Yes. Okay, you might do that. You might also ask somebody who you think has some experience with something similar, right? So the reason why precedent is important is when the legal community has to deal with something that they've never dealt with before, like outer space, they think about what would be analogous. What do I mean by analogous? Like something similar. And so they, when space started to be like spaceful, they had to think about something that was analogous. So what's analogous in terms of exploration of the unknown to space? Yeah. Yes, exactly, the ocean. And so precedent is important in the space international law, in large part because a lot of what we know about international law stems from what we figured out when we started to explore the ocean, okay? And I mean I mean way back, like way back in the day. Like we're talking precedent from like 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Okay? Those are the... Somebody just